Indigo was one name and Shy was another. But the Indigo name was kind of, resonating. It's kind of jazzy. And I liked it. But when I did some research on the meaning, this is what I found. That the people wore the same color of clothing based on social status. So there was a khaki color, there was a green color, and there was indigo. And indigo was how you made your clothes, that was the dye, but it was what it meant. And the color was trust. It meant trust. It's where in our culture, in American culture, that's where the navy blue business suit comes from. It's really origin and based on indigo. And it meant trust. Indigo grew wildly and freely on the land. Whites didn't know how to pick indigo, and neither did the Indians. The Africans were familiar with it. I understand you have to pick indigo up a certain way and pop it in order to get the color. So it's kind of the common dye for the outer image and the trust factor. That's what it really means. And so when we went to use indigo, I-N-D-I-G-O, we found that there was a company, the lawyers found that there was a company that had used it. And so I was told I could not use it. So that was telling me I couldn't use it after I had business cards and after I had a paper route. And so I was crying, I was frustrated, I was tearful, I was crazy. And my mother said, stop crying and start thinking. And she's the one who came up with indigo as N''D-I-G-O. So we put a little signature on it. Mama's touch. Part of our mission, purpose and passion, was to change the image of Black folk at large, anywhere, everywhere, but to change our image, to change it for us in our perception, but also to change it as we communicate it to a larger ethnic audience. One of the things that we've always done is had indigo in high schools. We were in all the high schools in the city. And so there's a whole 2 or 3 generations that have just grown up with indigo. It's always been there.
It's a blessing to have sources like Indigo Paper writing and reporting positive things that's happening in our community. Thank you, Indigo.
My name is Paul King. I am a lifelong Chicagoan. I am in the construction business and have been a long-time advocate for blacks entering the construction trades and for black contractors.
My name is Adrienne Brown. I'm editorial assistant, assisting on the production of this wonderful book.
My name is Gerald Miller, and currently I am the web developer and graphic designer with Indigo.com.
My name is Pepper Miller. I am the president of the Hunter Miller Group.
I'm Maudlin Hedgericka. I'm a columnist for the Chicago Sun-Times.
My name is Tina Hendricks, Tina Sloan Hendricks to be exact. I consider myself to be a youth advocate.
That particular passion of mine and experience of mine has brought me in contact with Hermene Hartman over a number of years. And when she first had the concept of indigo, I was actually awestruck because it was so necessary and it had been so long in coming. And when she came up with that idea, I certainly endorsed it and felt that it was something that was going to revolutionize communication and tell the black story.
I was early in my career, had just started at the Chicago Sun-Times, and had known Hermene for some time and was very, very excited to be asked to write for Indigo. So I wrote for Indigo in the early 90s through perhaps the mid-90s. I wrote several profiles for Indigo MAGA paper, and it was one of the best experiences for me at that time to be able to profile African American Chicago leaders who were not being covered by mainstream media, my entity included.
I love street papers, and I always have. It's the first thing I do is I go to the artsy part of town and I try to find what's going on kind of on the streets.
Indigo is a part of who I am, actually. It is. it's family, it's part of me, part of my work.
I was graced with the opportunity of having been on the cover of Indigo 3 times. And I think the time that got me the most was when she had this, I guess it was about a 4 foot by 8 foot poster in Marshall Field's windows. And she surprised me with it. And I walked down the street past Marshall Field's window and saw a great big picture of me in the window. And that just knocked my socks off. But she named me the man who put firm in affirmative action. And that particular title has followed me, around the country. But, affirmative action is the whole means of entering the construction industry, because Lyndon Johnson back in 1965 said that you had to redress slavery, redress the grievances coming out of discrimination. One had to take affirmative action.
In today's market, especially with our young people, they want to get to the top right away. They don't want to see what it took just to get to where our icons have gotten today.
What I like is that, Chicago has a very unique situation with its black middle class. It's, I think, the largest in the nation.
When I think about the stories that I read in Indigo and why it's important, it is very different from what we learn or read in mainstream media. One of the things that Indigo has is definitely the facts, and they have what is now a new term, well, not a new term, but it's a term that's becoming popular, the unvarnished truth.
It was an education each week, an introduction each week to people we needed to know, and I dare say that many of them became people whom I added to my contacts list, to my list of resources, as I did my job as a reporter in the mainstream media. So Indigo, I have watched Indigo for the past 2.5 decades as it grew, as it metamorphosed, and became a critical piece of the media landscape in Chicago. That piece that was missing in the mainstream media. And it really has carved an amazing niche for itself. And in that it has become a historical archive.
I love working on these articles. I love hearing what some of the people had to go through. Not that all of it was good, but I noticed that a lot of them have taken the bad and made something good out of it and shared it. Some of it's funny. I find myself laughing and hope that no one else hears me while I'm laughing and working on the articles, but it's how they have taken even some of the bad things and laughed it off and moved on. And that's a lot what life is.
When I started working with these young people here in Chicago, with Soul Train, celebrating Soul Train, it was just a natural progression to have other Black influential entities involved. You can't do anything with Black kids and not include Indigo.
There's no value in an opinion writing unless it leads to change. There's no value in opinion writing until it leads to change, and Hermene has been able to do that.
I've been a member of the National Association of Black Journalists for 2.5 decades, and the common complaint and the reason we exist is because our outlets, those of us who work at mainstream outlets, typically have only covered our communities, minority communities, be it Black, be it brown, when there is something negative occurring within that community.
Many marketers believe they can have one message to reach all people. That's not what Total Market is. It's supposed to be about identifying the leading segment pulling those insights from the segment and then using those segments across all other segments, but that's not happening. So what's happening is many marketers are focused on the Latino markets, and they are growing fast, they're large, they speak a different language. Language has become the cultural identifier. And so with that, marketers are forgetting about Black people and Black media. And in doing so, they're losing a lot of customers. So the value of Indigo is that Indigo, as I said earlier, is Black. It's about Black culture. Even though we speak English, we have different values and different needs. Yes, I speak English, but are you talking to me? And Indigo is a publication that spoke the language of Black people and Black culture.
I think Indigo has been a beacon for our community, especially Black women. In a time and an age where being a woman, first of all, was at the bottom of the totem pole, and being a Black woman put you probably under the bottom of the totem pole. Black women didn't have a lot to look to in regard to a proven formula to what we could and would eventually do. Indigo is that beacon for us.
I am truly enjoying these articles. They inspire me each and every time that I pick one up. I wait with great expectation for the next article, because sometimes it affects me when certain things are happening in my life. They have picked me up, and I think they'll do the same thing for you. They all tell a wonderful story, and it's not just an African American story. To me, it's a life story that everyone encounters one way or another. People are people. More importantly, people are God's people. And we are all here to serve one another.
Publication like Indigo, even online, is important. It's still very, very important. The internet is not an equalizer. Even though everybody uses the internet and we're all over the place in different sites, Black people still congregate in spaces where there are others like them. We use mainstream media, but we embrace Black media. We embrace Indigo.
Have thought about ourselves and reconsidered and re-engineered and expanded into online, indigo.com, Facebook, and all of the social media elements. You look back and you say, what do I do with these papers? What do I do with these stories? This has a lot of value. You've got two audiences now. One audience wants a paper. They still want to touch, feel, and see a newspaper or a magazine. And then you've got another audience, I call them the phoners. They're on the phone reading their paper. Those are two different mentalities. Those are two different thinkings. Whereas your content might still be the same, your delivery is very different. But you do want to get it out. So you've got to use all of these mediums now. So I thought it would be good to do the Indigo Legacy in the format of what we know, and that is a book. To put some of those stories in a book and really tell the story of a modern history and a living history, and to give that first blush of voice in addition to doing new media content.
It is exhilarating to see that people who started off the same way you did persevered and obtained the dreams and goals that they wanted in their life. Those are the same goals that I had. I didn't obtain all of them, but I obtained many of them. And I try to instill the same in my children.
Seeing numbers and facts and statistics in some of the articles in Indigo, where I haven't been able to get that before. And I've used Indigo as a resource as a result of that. Insights about African Americans that I know to be true, but need another resource to confirm it. And so Indigo has helped me in my work in that respect.
We have an information gap, an information void in the black community. Whether you're talking about leaded water in Flint, Michigan, or you're talking about Ferguson killings, or you talk about mass incarceration. And I think that Indigo is necessary to be able to articulate what black people are suffering and what some of the remedies could be. So for me, recognizing these things and feeling very deeply about it, I just applaud the work and the continuity of Indigo. And I'll just close with this. You know, it ain't easy, McGee, to be in business, especially when business is going through a transition from print to online and from black to white to young to old. And she has captured all of this, and I'm just delighted to be a part of it.
In the transition from the Indigo print to the website, indigo.com, we've done a strong push in the area of social media, getting these stories that were normally local Chicago, Midwest stories to a national audience and to a global audience. We found a large increase in our social media count as a result of it. We're hearing from people all over the world about the stories that we're telling. Indigo.com is going through a significant growth period, and it's really pushing to make our stories known nationally.
Yeah, the media landscape has completely changed, journalism has completely changed, but there will always be a need for traditional media outlets. Indigo and other newspapers aren't going anywhere. We'll change the way we deliver, we'll augment the way we deliver, we'll refocus the way we deliver, but there will always be that generation. Even as it dies out, there will be a new generation that understands there is nothing like holding that tangible, living history, newsprint, in your hands when it comes to newspapers like Indigo and other outlets or magazines. So I think that while the landscape has changed for media, it's changed for the better. It's allowed us all really to revolutionize and rethink the way we do what we do. And it's a better world for the consumer because now they have more choices. It's allowed more diverse voices to enter the game. And it speaks to what Indigo has always done and has always been. While as perhaps 15 years ago, there were not that many voices. There were not that many outlets like Indigo that could provide those diverse voices. Well, now there are so many more.
Black history is American history. And I think our kids hear that. People say it all the time now. It's a little catchphrase, but it's still not reflected in their everyday education. So a book like this would be something that is important to families. I remember growing up, we had an encyclopedia, and our kids today don't even understand what that means. When you had a full set of encyclopedia in your house and people came to your house, they were like, oh wow, these people have arrived. You know, it was a big deal. So now with the age of the internet, the superhighway, it's at our fingertips. We don't have something like the encyclopedia. This book could be that. It could be an encyclopedia of who we are, who we aspire to be, who we became, who we're gonna be. It can be an opportunity for young people to literally see themselves through their dreams.
It's the backstory that Indigo provides that the media doesn't always capture. For example, I remember I believe it was the Million Man March edition. So when we read in mainstream media, they talked about a few thousand black men marching on the Washington Mall. And they talked about who was there, Farrakhan, and maybe some other celebrities, and captured some of the speeches. But when you read the story in Indigo and Hermene's commentary, I remember some of the phrases about a million men, a million lives. I remember the stories about being orderly. That's important in terms of breaking some of the stereotypes that are often captured in the mainstream media. So Hermene told the stories about the men who were there, why they were there, the emotions that they felt. This whole idea about being orderly and loving. I remember a bucket was passed to take up a collection, and I mean it was thousands of dollars that were being passed from one man to another to take up the collection, and how there was no incident. But what we captured, or what Hermene captured, I should say, in Indigo, was what we already know, that we have good men, and our men are caretakers and loving and family men. So those are the stories that she told. She breaks the stereotypes about African Americans.
A librarian sat down with me from the University of Michigan and said to me, please be very serious about what you're doing. And they have collected all of our papers. And she pointed out to me that one day somebody will be doing research on the city of Chicago, and they will look at your paper and it will tell them a story. I took that very seriously. I took it to heart. That was a very valuable conversation for her to have, because indeed it came true. But then what happened is people began to call me as people died, requesting that paper and or that particular picture. We spend a lot of time taking what I call Vogue-like pictures, and they wanted the picture for the program of the funeral or for an obituary. And the first time I got one of those calls, it shook me. The other thing that happened that made me realize the real importance of our paper, as we have featured people, I've gone into their homes or gone into their offices, and I see Indigo on the wall as a real tribute and keepsake that they have. So it's been serious, because oftentimes it's been the best story, and maybe even the only story, that has really profiled the essence and accomplishments of that particular person. So the Indigo legacy is very rich. It's rich media, it's rich content, and I think it's time for it to be put in a volume and shared.